Say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I hope everyone had a happy Easter. Thank you for coming. Our illustrious clerk to call the roll.
Okay, Supervisor Kramer.
Here.
Clerk Weidsma, here. Treasurer Dillahay.
Here.
Trustee Vance, absent. Trustee Pearson, absent.
I want to report.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. I want to report that Ms. Pearson is on her retirement vacation from her regular job. Hi. And for the first time in 8 years, Ms. Vance has missed a meeting. Her father, a Korean War veteran and combat tank commander, is on hospice. So he's in our hearts and our prayers. Is there any board member conflicts of interest statements?
No.
No. So we're going to have a public hearing on the 6-year capital improvement plan that was published on the web. Is there anyone that would like to speak as to the hearing? You can make any statements you want. Make no decision. We're just listening to the public. Push down and hold it.
Boat launch. Is that Resort Road? Where is it?
That's a parks play.
You mean you're not going to answer it for me?
Not now. You can talk to me later. This is
Well-
just public comment time, public hearing time.
It's a public hearing, so I want to know, that should be my chance to ask questions, right?
No,
It's public comment is public comment, and this is public hearing.
go ahead. I'm hearing.
I don't find that humorous, Bob.
I'm not being humorous.
Then if you're going to publish these, then you need to be more descriptive. Because you
Okay.
shouldn't have given me the piece of paper at all, because it doesn't say anything on it. How would a resident who didn't live on the west side of Burke Lake, which I assume that's where this park is, be sure to know where it is? And you're saying to them, okay, here's a public hearing, come tell me what you think. Only you don't bother to tell them where it is.
Well, it's in the parks plan. That
I think information is important.
so
And
do
when we
I.
get a piece of paper that looks like this,
So do I.
that doesn't have any information on it but titles. That's my same objection when we get to the agenda, because I read the package. I applaud you for sending the package, but the agenda doesn't tell you what it is. I'm not interested in commenting. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Public hearing is closed. Approval of the meeting agenda. With the board's permission, I'd like to scratch 10D. Sewer project bids, phase 1 SAD. And I would like to add Navinoy, a discussion on Navinoy. We got bids from the road commission this afternoon. So under old business 9C.
I would like to pull the treasurer's report.
Pull the treasurer's report. Would you like that under new or old?
We talk about it every month. We can put it under old. I don't really have a preference, to be honest.
Okay, so 9D will be the treasurer's report.
What's the motion?
So the motion is to add 9D treasurer's report, 9C Navinoy, and delete 10D sewer project bids. That's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll support that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Consent agenda.
You want to do public?
Yeah,
comment?
before we do that, is there any public comment on the agenda items? Anybody want to make a comment on the agenda items? Okay. Okay, we'll move along. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as,
Okay, old business, property sale. Glow. So the board approved the sale of on behalf of the township.
I'll support that motion.
All right, that's Kramer and White.
Any discussion? Okay, next item, North Star Gardens. Mr. Jakeway. Come right up and push that little button there. Just as some background, board, you may recall some months ago, we got a letter which is in your packet where Mr. Jakeway asked for the establishment of a district. And I'm going to let Mr. Jakeway bring us up to date. And maybe you could just start from the very beginning.
Okay.
So we all have a frame of reference.
Until the light comes on.
That good?
Yeah.
Yep, you're on.
So the overall project that we are proposing for the old motel property next to our North Star Gardens involves some retail, some small park models, just an extension, a little bit of a nursery with the county, and just going through the steps of getting the projects going and keeping things rolling on that side. When I met with Mike, he introduced me to multiple people, one being Sharon, one being Lindsay Miller from the MEDC, and she got us up to speed on some grants and different things that are available for distressed properties, and we have one of those. And so in further talks with her, we hired on a consultant, and Tom Johnson, who has been working with us closely and putting the grants together, and piles of paperwork and lots of time, which is all as well as the county. And so that's where we introduced it to you guys. And from there, Tom has been working in trying to bring everybody up to speed, both in the township and also at the county level, of how this process works, as he works with people and communities from Detroit to Boyne City and everywhere in between. Groups and things, he should have those done here this next week in preparation to make a final, proposal to the township to see if we will be capable of a tax and sewer abatement. And that's, again, the only way that Lindsay Miller and the MEDC will even look at a project. I know there was another batch of money that was just given to the MEDC. I know funds are tight, but there was some that was given, and she would love to have it come to Northern Michigan and not to Detroit and Grand Rapids and Big Rapids. And
Did I understand correctly? I read somewhere it's like all of a sudden they got like 60 million.
I think she told me 50.
Okay.
Yeah, which can easily evaporate in just
Sure.
a few big projects in some of the bigger cities, for sure. And these are state funds, and if they don't come to Indian River, they go somewhere else. And when they go somewhere else, then you see, organizations and townships that thrive and have more to offer. Their constituents and their taxpayer base to help growth and bring more jobs and give more opportunity.
So we're all learning about this, Mr. Jakeway, and we had a joint meeting with TDA and ourselves, and we had NLEA here, and they, gave us some training. And if I understand it correctly, with the help of MEDC, and the MEDC wants to see project.
Mm-hmm.
Did I
Unfortunately, aren't always sustainable without the help of the MEDC, and they realize that. But yet they want to make sure that, again, if we can do this and the model becomes sustainable with their grant, then it moves forward.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said from the beginning, we run a very successful business and employ, I think we handed out 75 W-2s and this last January. And so we employ a lot of people right now. It is not my desire to employ another 100 people. This project will employ 27 to 32 in addition, and consolidate some of our positions that we have right now in-house. Of what needs to take place in order for this to thrive. It's the only way I'll do it. It's the only way we did what we did at the store or any other LLC or corporation that we've done. I'm very calculated on our risk. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And if the township and the people say, no, we're not good with this, then that MEDC money will go to another township, and that's fine. I just have an opportunity township to say, hey, I think this will beautify and add to the environment. Said, hey, there are opportunities there, and communities are taking advantage of them statewide. And here's the opportunity. I know the township's never done it, and I'm not saying it's good, bad, or sideways that we have never done it as a township. Does this and consults this, then I think we've all learned something from him.
Mm-hmm.
Educational and talk, and I asked them, it didn't really need to be here tonight until we put everything together in an absolute formal, which will be in the months, weeks, and possibly months to come. So
I think what I learned at rehabilitation district doesn't necessarily mean what I learned. And another thing I think I learned that is all the adjacent property owners and the property owners involved. And what I learned from the NLEA is we might be better off thinking about not just having a small district on Mr. Jakeway's property, but for a larger area. So if a worthy project were to come available to us, we wouldn't have to go through that process all over again. And I also understand, correct me if I'm wrong, MEDC will only do this for our downtown area. I asked Ms. Clark that the kind of program that you're talking about is only for downtown, and you meet that qualification.
Has to be walkable, bikeable, has to be in the path of where the public hangs out and maneuvers. And from the state park into town obviously follows that suit. And that's where Lindsay brought it up. Yeah, if we were out of town, obviously it's not.
We're going to hand out money. They got to go to the MEDC. Some of the other things, they had to request a specific time period.
There's a time horizon, yes.
I think it's no more than 10 years.
Well, I'll say another thing to that too. It's not a handout of money. The grant would be, yes, from the state. I paid the same amount of sewer I'm paying now. From there, the abatement covers the time, again, to get this established and flourishing. Therefore, at the end, again, if someone were to tell me we pay $15,000 right now in taxes, for example, if I were to say to you, all right, I continue to pay that $15,000, but at the end of 10 years, you'll make $85,000. Obviously, taxes are guaranteed. I stop paying them. The county owns my property. This is a rental program that we all have as real estate. Stop paying your property taxes and you're no longer an owner. That is a given, and it's an absolute. Again, to not look at this and say, hey, this is an investment for the long term of our community. At the end of 10 years, we get X amount more than we would right now. I think we all have to look at that and say, boy, this just makes sense. And again, I don't say this for North Star to flourish. I have got to look after my company. That's it. You and the people of Tuscarora Township have to look at the viability and the sustainability of our township. I'm in this township as a business. I don't live in the township. Obviously, we want the township to thrive. We want this to work for everything that we've done here. But with that, I really want everyone to understand this is not a handout of money. If I do nothing, I still pay the 15 grand. If we do something and we get a tax abatement, I still pay the 15 grand. It's the abatement period that allows us time to make sure that this can flourish and we can iron out some bumps in the road that may happen economically, governmentally, whatever you want to say through this time period, for them to throw the grant money at it, because they want to make sure the grant monies they throw at these projects, all over the state of Michigan, are sustainable and viable and they work. There's two different ways that it can be done on it. So there's local, and then there's the school, fire, police, all that. Tom will present all those facts to you. Again, he's the one that knows all of this.
Yeah.
I can't answer you. Then again, the township and the board and everyone can vote, but I still pay, again, the 15 grand that I pay now. So that doesn't change. It doesn't erase my property taxes. It doesn't erase my sewer taxes I have now. It abates anything additional that the property would then bring to the project for a time period. And then after that, it goes up exponentially. If I do nothing, it stays 15 grand until I get old and gray and I'm done. And the township gains nothing. And again, I don't say this to fight for this project or fight for, my company. Our company's fine. We'll be busy until I'm old and gray, which is happening faster and faster. But with all that, I just want to come and educate the township saying, hey, here's an opportunity. And it surprises me that have to, objectively look at it and say, boy, this makes sense on paper, and then work forward. Or say, hey, what about this? What about that? Tom will answer all those questions.
This project before, and enterprise funds are very different. And the sewer fund stuff.
Mhm.
And so if you tell me you're another police officer because you're putting this in, I do see that we're going to have an extra burden on the sewer. And if you're not paying for it, the rest of the users of the sewer are, because the sewer has to pay for it. Statement. So I want to put that.
No, and there's the discussion of it. And Tom will have facts
Mhm.
from other projects, again, to say, everyone can see it. There's nothing hidden. There's no agenda. I mean, this is about growth for the community. And you look at other communities that have done well with this MEDC program with Lindsay Miller, like a Boyne City, they've done well with it. And again, that's all words.
I'm looking forward to seeing the numbers. So thank
So-
you.
Yeah, so am I. You've heard of the Toyota production system. I think everybody has, at least in the automotive industry. But they base it on Plan, Do, Check, Act, PDCAs. Evaluate the experiment and then act on that with a new plan. So I can support this if it's simply, like we said, a learning opportunity going forward. But I still need to see the financials, and I agree with Jan that we need to understand all the financials, those that can't change or should change going upward versus those that can be abated. But we won't learn anything if we don't have a learning opportunity, understanding its implications. That's my 2 cents worth.
I think a good analogy is, the old Indian River Motel that's gone,
Mhm.
right? You're paying X amount of tax on that. As I recall, 12 units to rent out, but you'll still be paying the tax that you've been paying all along.
Mhm.
You won't pay on the increased value until later.
And to your point earlier, so we bought the motel with 7 REUs. And so the way you're looking at it, I would fight on the other side and say that I bought a motel that I tore down, that I'm not being a burden on the sewer system at all. There's nothing there right now. So I'm paying 7 REUs for now 5 years with all the usage and everything with no use. So I see what you're saying going forward. I would just like you to see what I've done up to this point also. And if it takes another 2 years for us to be in the system, then essentially I've given 7 years of usage, non-usage, paying all my dues, paying all my taxes in order to build something for the community that we can all be proud of and utilize and have friends and family come to for an abatement, then helps make it sustainable for the future. So looking one way, I'd appreciate if we can look the other way.
Absolutely.
Okay, then we're good.
Anything else for Mr. Jakeway?
When do you think you're going to have the numbers?
We were just waiting on a Todd Seidel on one separate piece that I think he's got everything now that he needs. So I talked to Tom before the meeting. I would say as early as next week. I don't know who's leaving and what's happening here on the short term, but then we can go through and sit down with that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, our next item on the agenda is 9C. So um, uh, the Navinoy Trail is over the required 10% by quite a bit. The bids range from $76,600 to over $100,000. Um, So really, a special meeting notice and that type of activity under the guidance of the bond council. So we don't have to decide whether to actually proceed because we would have to issue, newspaper ads, notices and what have you. But I do need to know if the board wants to proceed in getting Navinoy paved, or whether we just want to drop it, or do we want to wait another year and try again? I did talk to 2 of the 8 primary landowners, and they're willing to go higher, but of course that's not everybody, and that's why you have a public hearing. My personal recommendation is the road's never going to get any cheaper. I just think we need to proceed. I'd rather have that than a parking lot.
Yeah, me too. They quoted at, now they're coming at 76,000,
Correct.
20,000. There's going to have to be a bond for this as well.
If
Just
you want
like-
to buy, that's really worth it. That's something.
I'm just asking, right? I'm not
Yeah, that we
suggesting.
can discuss, which may or may not be there if we wait next year.
Right, so the 25 comes off the 76,
Correct.
and that leaves us with 50. And then my opinion is we should try to complete the project as soon as possible this year while we have the money.
What's the total we're gonna
But
recoup
that's
from the
just an
SAD?
opinion.
I'm sorry.
What's the total we're recouping from the special assessment district?
What you're
Okay,
saying.
I gave you a
based on, I guess, based on what they understood here on this roll.
That's the old one.
Yeah, what's the total here?
The old roll came out to,
Had to come out to 25,000, right? Something like that.
yeah, the old roll came out to 56,000 less 25,000.
Less 25,000.
Let's see, wait a minute, 56,500. We
31.
put our 10%, which is 5,000.
25, 31, yeah, 31.
So it's about, yeah. See it? If we raise the if we proposed raising the assessment from $800 to $1,100, and the backlotters from $390 to $5, the road commission and an additional 10%, we could see it through. Or we could just stay with our 10%.
So when do we need to make a decision? Today, tonight?
Well, we would have to make a decision after a public hearing. But tonight's, according to the bond council, tonight's decision is, do we want to drop it? Or do we want to proceed with the next step because it's over 10% of sending out notices and having a public?
They want to proceed rather
Well,
than
we have to
decide for
do
them by
Yeah, we would have to
saying,
do
drop it.
motion to proceed, and then I'll get with the bond council and exactly what we have to do to get input from the public.
Okay, I will make a motion that we proceed with a public hearing on establishment of the Navinoy Trail Special Assessment District with the assessment adjusted as necessary based on the new bids.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Treasurer's report.
Let me just get that.
Yeah,
The SAD for Navinoy with adjusted
Assessment amounts based on the new bids.
assessment amounts.
So again, we're not deciding to proceed, we're deciding to look at proceed. Because there are certain elements of the law that we have to do if it's over 10%.
Okay, got it.
Okay, treasurer's report, ma'am.
Okay. We're skipping over the credit card and the pay setting and, no, this is a little bit long, so I apologize in advance. I just wanted to take a moment to address some of the comments I've heard about financial data here in the township recently. This is not a response to anyone or any particular issue. It's sort of an aggregation of what I've heard over the last few months. My goal is to give you some insight about where we are in the process and where we plan to focus in the coming months. First, the comments about the board packet and the financials, you need to be aware that we're posting these online and preparing them before the month is ended. So I haven't had time, clearly, before the month is ended to get the statement from the bank, reconcile the bank, or do any other work papers to verify these balances. But my commitment is to get some information out, as imperfect as it may be, rather than to hold back information until we've got it done perfectly. So I ask for some grace with that. When we have a meeting on the 2nd of April, it is impossible to get all of the month end tied out, even though Chris is rock star. Secondarily, I'm committed to publishing it, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. This goes for both the financial statements and the treasurer's report. I think it is markedly more than we've seen in the past, and I'm committed to answer questions and deal with imperfection rather than to leave people in the dark. There is cleanup. So Mr. Bragg is a hero of mine. He was in charge of consulting at Ernst & Young, and 7 Habits for Highly Effective Controllers, paid dearly for this class. Habit number 1, search for errors. I'm going to read you exactly what he says. When an error occurs anywhere in a business transaction, it takes base level knowledge of the transaction. Usually it's a senior level person within the company who is assigned to track it down and fix it. The result is an inordinate amount of time being spent by the best employees, by best he means highly skilled, in the company to make those repairs. If a less experienced person is involved in correcting errors, this can result in yet other errors which require even more work to track down and correct. The issue is exacerbated by the sheer extent of the problem. He's talking about double entry accounting, and in the world of government accounting, just to make it more complicated, it is generally quadruple entry. We don't just move money from one fund to another. We've got due to and due from and all kinds of crazy stuff that we have to keep track of. So here are some examples. The library. I had a meeting with the library. They asked me what the $17,000 receivable was on their books at the beginning of the year. This is an easy one. So I went back and I found out that we get money in August for penal fines. And because for whatever reason that accounting people deem it, it's actually due for the prior year. So what should happen is we should figure out how much that is. We should book the receivable and book the revenue in the year. And then when the new year rolls over, we reverse that entry for the accrual so that when the money comes in, we're not reporting that same revenue twice. That started in 2019 and it sat there for years. It is now on a checklist I have for year end of things to look at to make sure it doesn't happen again. Cash over and short in the tax fund. That was last cleared out on 6/30 of 2019. And when I walked into the office, it had $100,000 in the credit balance on the trial balance. So I heard people say they want a trial balance. I'm not opposed to giving you a trial balance. But when you see this stuff, you don't have any perspective of how long it's been sitting there. And while I'll take responsibility to fix it, I won't take blame for it sitting there long before I walked into the office. The Eagles Nest SAD has an $80,000 receivable. It's been sitting there since we rolled over from the old accounting system to the new accounting system. So The process for fixing this is you got to figure out how it happened to start with. Then you got to figure out what should have happened. And then you got to line those numbers up and say, how do I fix it? So Chris and I are going to figure out how to fix the $80,000 receivable balance on a long retired SAD. We know we collected the money, but we don't know where the other half of that entry is. And we can't go back to the old system and figure it out because we don't have access. So we're going to continue to provide data, even though it's imperfect. We're working to prepare the budget. We're working on cleaning up the trial balance. We're working to get ready for year end, asking questions of the auditors long before we get there. There are checklists, work papers. Anytime you want to come in my office and see the binders of documentation that now exist, happy to have you come in and look at it. The taxpayers of this township deserve a good accounting system, and because they pay for it, and we're creating it. I'm committed to fix these issues in this office, as is everyone else, for the benefit of the taxpayers. This isn't about me. Chris has been particularly diligent in getting accounts analyzed and working on solutions and processes. She is one of the rock stars on this team. If you find mistakes, thank you. I appreciate it. Seriously, I do. I can't possibly see everything at this level on my own because it is very complicated. The trial balance is 5 pages long. 5 pages. Lots to look at. If you want to know more, please ask. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm here most evenings. I'm here almost every day at 10 o'clock in the morning when they're at work and they don't want to be bothered. I also understand that most of the treasurers in this county also have other jobs. So that's that. And the last thing I want to say is doing it or how careful you are. So with that, I want to apologize to the library about the credit card. I walked into the bank. I handed them we had already and pay the bill because the check had not been received by the credit card company for over 2 weeks. And this is another issue that we're dealing with. And I know that created inconvenience for you, and I'm sorry. And we now have it set up online so we can pay it online and we don't have to worry about the mail.
I'm sorry, just the way I was raised, sorry. 10A, I'd like the deputy supervisor to come up and talk about this resolution. Turn the mic.
There's the first lot in the Commerce Park, when you turn into Commerce Drive on your right, Commerce Boulevard, excuse me. First parcel on your right, frontage on M68, a little over 7 acres. That property was sold to a develop operative, very open and transparent. He also has made a couple of informational presentations to the Planning Commission and was very warmly received. Has made some modifications from his initial plan, removing the residential element from his store aluminium projects, although they remain to be very high-end, 6 units a building, a 6-unit project. This Planning Commission application that's going in. Working with him, Risk at the county has been working very closely with him. We all believe that this is a good fit for the township. It will absolutely enhance our tax base, and it will do so in a very classy way that I think all of us will be proud of. So in order to support his bid, the township is offering a resolution in support of his project, and that resolution 20. Whereas MGD Indian Residency owns property in Michigan 49749. Whereas April 3rd, 2024, the Sheboygan County Planning Commission will consider a special use application for said property. Whereas the township will greatly benefit from this development and its addition to the commercial tax base. Whereas the Township Board of Trustees also supports the language and intent of this application. Therefore, be it resolved that the Tuscarora Township Board of Trustees hereby supports the granting of said special use permit for this location within its Commerce Park. All resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution be and the same hereby are rescinded.
So is there a motion
Yeah, I'll move to
as the resolution?
pass the resolution.
Is there a second?
I'll support that.
Discussion. I've met Mr. Teeter several times. He loves it up here. That's why I bought the property. What I like about it, from everything that I've seen, is that it's not just a glorified man cave. A businessman can put a nice business.
No residential component anymore.
Right, storage for his equipment, workshop if necessary. So this could help with our economic base as well, in my view. So
It's gonna have water, sewers.
Yep.
Obviously electricity.
Water, sewer, electric, heating and cooling.
so any further discussion? All in favor?
That's a roll call.
Yeah, it's a roll call, correct?
It's okay. Supervisor
Yes.
Kramer, yes.
Yes.
Treasurer Dillahay
Yes.
and Clerk Reedley, yes.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll worry
you.
about signatures later.
Okay.
10B, PNC credit card check.
Yeah, I'm gonna build on what Jan was talking about. I'm gonna walk through just a little bit of a storyline here to kind of get to the bottom line. And the bottom line is I'm going to be asking the board that we take a look at another credit card company. So I will make that motion in a few minutes here. We've had ongoing problems with Elan Financial Services from day one. And the bank doesn't even like Elan, part of CNB. So they had to step in to help us get the credit card in the first place, which was a community credit card. Citizens National Bank has a logo on Elan Financial Services, but you cannot make a check payment at CNB or talk to anyone at Citizens about your charge card. In other words, I think that's the problem that Jan ran into on our behalf. Trying to do the right thing and not having anybody there to go to bat for you at CNB, or have anybody on the other side of the Elan credit card look at us as a customer as opposed to just another financial document. So the closing date on 1/19 with the due date of 2/17, we made a payment on 2/7 for $3,300. We did not make it to Missouri in time, which did not make it to Missouri in time. We could no longer make the charges on February 26th as was designed. I was instructed, this was our admin, that I sent the payment to UPS 3 days to a different address in Missouri. They have one address for mailing checks, a different address for ordering checks. So now we have a problem there getting it to the right address at the Elan credit card. So the Elan shows they returned the check. I don't know. But obviously it wasn't lost, it was delayed. Then our credit card showed a remaining statement balance of $519 at the end of February. The next payment was due on the 17th of March. We worked very hard to get everything synchronized between to actually do the work to provide create a check. And yet we couldn't get them to get out of our way. So we ended up just a week or so ago, paid $6,900. We're back $6,900. I think you lost the use of the credit card for that time. We don't get any notice, and I guess we could have gotten notice had we been smart enough to put in the alerts and notices on our credit card. But right now I can't. I mean, that would be an option, but I really think that it's time to move on.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
So the other problem that we have with this card is that only one person can have access online. And their recommendation is that we share logins, which is a violation of our technology policy. So, not a great solution.
Business.
And just generally very frustrating when they reported that this was, so, I work with city business with an enterprise card. We have 15 users. They all have access. They can all see their own transactions, print out their own reports. They make sure they turn in all of their receipts. They can't see everybody else's stuff, obviously. And I dislike that card very much because of their security process. I didn't think that I would have to say that there was somebody who had a worse program, but this is worse. When I talked to them at the bank, they said that they were transferring the money. We'll have to go get my documentation for that, but here we are. We can pay online, but this is not a sustainable solution for the township and or for the library. So
So-
we have a motion.
CMB basically had to ask his help to intervene on our behalf to get there. You shouldn't have to do that. People at CMB that we deal with, that they're very nice people. That's not their problem. They're told what to do, how to do it, when to do it. This is a management process issue at CMB Bank and at Elon. So having said all that, my motion is to move for board approval to evaluate other credit card companies versus the Elon card company. And if we have a deal to go ahead and pursue another credit card company.
are you doing this, Jay?
I'm gonna get help from Chris.
Okay. Oh, I didn't say that.
Well, we
Is there a
can
second?
get it done.
Is there a second?
I support it.
Is
Absolutely.
there any more discussion? Let's have a roll call, please.
Okay, Kramer,
Here, yes.
Delay,
Yes.
Reedsma, yes.
Can we let Kelsey vote too?
You can sit over here.
Next item on the agenda, set compensation. There are two issues. I move, man, today's a bad day. I move that we set pay for our board of review employees at $20 an hour. Is there a second?
I'll support that.
Okay, discussion. I went all the way back in the minutes forever. I couldn't find exactly when they were given the present pay of $15 an hour. But when talking with them, it's gone on for years and years and years and years. I also checked the board of review budget, and even at $20 an hour, it is within our budget. So they do a lot of work for us, and they have some nice people and some angry people.
But the
The average pay per year for them is maybe $600 or $700. So with that, is there any further discussion?
Do we have a motion and support for that?
Yeah,
Okay. I lost track. Sorry.
right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed. The parks maintenance supervisor and their board, or Parks Commission rather, has requested that, as you can see on page 2, from Mr. Schofield, asking for an exception. Last time we authorized $1,650. He has Dennis Renaud that he would like to pay $18 an hour, who, as you can see, he's got his justification in there. He has more experience than the usual folks that he hires, comes very well recommended, and will be doing a lot of physical work.
Do you want a motion to pay Dennis 18 an hour?
If somebody wants to make one,
I will make a motion to authorize the Parks Department to pay Dennis Renaud $18 an hour.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion of any kind? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it. Public comment, please. Step right up. Any public comment? Yes, sir.
Yes, my name's Patrick McGinnis. I wasn't planning on making any comments, but I think Mr. Kramer's treatment of Sally Snyder tonight was not in best form for this board. I say that based in part, when Mr. Kramer was first running for trustee, he made promises to people in his campaign on the west side that he would have parks put something in on the west side. And when he was questioned, where would it go, because we don't own any property there, he said, don't worry, it will happen. After he became trustee, he came before the Parks Commission and told them if they did not include a west side project on the 5-year plan, he would make sure that their 5-year plan would never get submitted, never be approved. He even came up with a $15,000 cost for this project. So with all this being said, for Mr. Kramer to sit here tonight and to say he has no idea where this project would be, I think was a little insulting to Ms. Snyder. And I think, once again, I'd say she deserves an apology, but we all know Bob Kramer refused to apologize to my wife, refused to apologize to Don Webb, refused to apologize to Beth Henderson, and I could go on and on and on all night, because you're that type of person. Yeah, sit there with that smirk on your face like you had when you were dissing Sally Snyder tonight. That shows us all what type of person you are. Thank you for your time.
Public comment.
I also didn't plan on making comments until just now, but hello, my name's Ron Crandy. I'd like to start with some very noticeable comparisons we have going on between local politics here in Tuscarora Township and national politics. It starts with controlling the local, but more importantly, being able to delete or silence any dissenting opinions. Next, keep up a continuous attack of misinformation about wrongdoings and illegal behavior. And lastly, attack supporters of those in power, or even people like myself, who simply support the progress those in power are making. I never understood those who hate those in power so much that they want them to fail or try to make them fail at the expense of everyone else. And yet here we are. When the hate gets to the point that Supervisor Kramer's wife is getting harassed and told it's a good thing her first military husband died, it's reached an unacceptable level, and yet here we are. Warranted or not, I just hope that by next November, people will start to see what's really at play here, and they can put whatever personal feelings they have aside for the progress being made in this township. I think we've all seen over the past few years on a national level what happens when you vote on emotion and not policy. Thank you.
Public comment. Yes, ma'am.
Have y'all saw the fish?
Yep.
Yes.
It's wonderful. It's beautiful. And we'll be looking for a fountain soon, probably too.
Get me some
A
water.
what?
A fountain.
Get me some water.
We're working on it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
They were out there working in the snow today.
Public comment, please. Any public comment? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say thank you to North Star for bringing their project forward and to encouraging us to all learn about the commercial district and the opportunities for development that we can actually tap into some state funds. I know that the project has been difficult and time consuming. And I appreciate the fact that you are willing as a local business to put a lot of personal money into the project as well. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to learn across the board how we might better be able to tap into other funds that are out there and available to help our community grow and thrive.
Public comment. Any more public comment? Public comment is closed. Board comment.
Okay, you looking at me?
We are both looking at you.
Okay, I'd like to talk about elections a little bit. First of all, hopefully you all know that we have a May 7th election for the school bond / millage issue. We're in the midst, this is going to be a consolidated school millage bond election. In other words, there's 6 townships involved, of which we're one. Will be precinct 2, and then the other 5 townships will be precinct 1. The voting in the polls will occur in this room for both precincts, and we'll have a setup similar to what we always have, but there'll be one more tabulator in here versus the one tabulator we have. So we'll have two tabulators in here. The accounting board will handle all the absentee or AV ballots, if you will, that come in from the different townships. And we believe that's doable. We'll have extra help if we need it. So that's coming up. That's just a little bit of information. We do have this on the window in front in case anybody hasn't read what the proposal is. We know how we're going to set up the room, something like this. And we've been busy, very busy getting the ballots out. So we've already gotten about 500 ballots out there in the mail or in people's hands, or actually some of them have been returned already. We have probably about 450 permanent ballot voters and probably 50 perm AV application ballot voters in that mix. Just for information, I was going to cover it below, but this number is similar to what we had for the presidential primary. We had about 373 people vote at the precinct, and we had 446 people vote in AV or absentee voters out of 515 ballots that were requested out of 900 applications that were sent out. So you can all do the math on that. We're not very good at having the number of applications or absentee voters show up for actually even getting the ballot back to us for voting. I wish we would have better turnout in that respect. I want to thank those that helped for this past week get everything out the door. We had Penny Pezno, my deputy clerk, and Amy Grandy from our office staff helping out. In addition to that, Diane Wetkesser, Jim and Vicki Bauer, and my wife, Mary. So now we would expect more to come, but not a lot more. And like I said, we're in the midst of trying to figure out less than what we are currently showing on the books. I also want to just mention a couple things about February 27th. We had, as I just said, 446 AV absentee ballots. We had 373 poll precinct election from Tuscarora Township. And in addition to that, they'll have the 5 other townships participating. And so it's less. Also want to thank all the that worked to make it a success on February 27th. And I'm going to run down the list real quickly. Christine Olson, Jim Bowers, Vicki Bowers, Catherine Halverson, Don Westerhoff, Carol Westerhoff, Caitlin Shepley, who's an 18-year-old, so we got her involved early. Penny, and then and obviously Cindy Weimer. Cindy has turned in her resignation. I can't tell you how hard she worked at trying to help us figure out all the odds and ends of voting. And as Jen just talked about, there are things that need to be, I'll say, not current, whatever it is. I don't care what term you use. We have to get after them and get them fixed. We got to get our database up to date. That's really what the bottom line is. And Cindy got us a long way down that path. We're still working on, finalizing all that.
She's still willing to help, yes.
And she's willing to help if indeed we need it. But yeah, she did a great job. And I know she's not here tonight, but hopefully and she knows how I feel about it. But if you happen to see her and you happen to want to say, thank you, that it would be very welcome. Last thing. The other thing I want to mention is all the people I just mentioned, they're returning on the 7th of May to help us again, which I can't, I just can't thank you enough. That's all I've got.
Jan?
Parks meeting next week. They plan to work on the draft for their budget. I will be there. We can work on fleshing out some of the information on the capital improvement plan as well, if we have time.
Well, one last thing, our public testing for the May 7th will be April 9th, 1 to 3 p.m. which is a Tuesday.
And guys, hate-fueled fear-mongering news in our political landscape. We can't turn a blind eye anymore to the damage by those who, and his specifically, have led to the loss or delay of investment in our community, have driven away volunteers who would otherwise be eager to serve. The poisonous rhetoric, month after month, of hate and fear with no solutions serves only to tear at the very fabric of this community. Further, when we consider the history and of violence, I mean, is it just total destruction, scorched earth, or is it something else? I mean, is it driven by the desire to profit from clickbait? Many of you may not be aware that on these social media platforms, the more you click can lead to financial gain. So on YouTube, for example, if you get enough clicks, you start monetizing those clicks. The more lies you spread, the more people click, the more money you make eventually. It's a dangerous game, monetizing hate at the expense of truth and decency. It's not my job to tell parks how to do their job. That's up to them. Their 5-year plan is up to them. I'm not the one that didn't bother to run for the parks election like you were required by law to do. But for some reason, it's my fault. So I could go on and on and on, but it's just not worth it. It's never going to end. But that's okay. I will continue to fight like hell for this township and for these folks. And I appreciate all these board members who definitely are not doing it for the money. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I have a couple comments too, please.
Yes, sir.
So just ending on a little more positive note, I just want to bring you up to speed on a couple things. We're insured with the PAR plan. One of the options or benefits we get from PAR plan, we've always done it this way, all that stuff. PAR plan provides driving records for employees that drive company-owned vehicles free of charge once a year. This is not directed at the PD. They already have all of this handled by law and MCOLs. This is referring to parks employees, new parks employees, anyone else that's going to drive a township-owned vehicle. Upon hire, they're going to give us their driving record or give us their driver's license. They're going to give us permission to get their driving record. That driving record will be reviewed by our risk management. If it's acceptable, fine. If it's not acceptable, we still can make them a job offer or an employment offer. They just can't operate company vehicles. And seeing as we're getting a brand new parks truck, I think this is timely. Another benefit of this service is real-time monitoring. So once those employees are signed into this service, whenever anything hits their driving record, we as their employer are notified. So we can just keep a handle on that. Is it a solution to a problem that doesn't exist? Maybe right now. But, do we want a judgment or do we want a civil lawsuit because someone's driving around on a suspended license and we didn't ask? So that problem's addressed. We will be having more 3-member internal strategy sessions regarding the building grant. And there is another whole building meeting regarding the grant next week. I personally would like to thank Kelsey and Gordon for cooperating on that. I think that everybody's getting along great. I think that we'll be able to get things done with the funds that are available. We may have to skinny a few things out. We may have to restructure. And remember, all of this is being monitored and has the oversight of the grant committee, for lack of a better word, the governmental agency giving us the grant, because unfortunately it's the first time they've done that. So they're very, very thorough to a fault, bordering on gun shy. And then lastly, to end on a good note, I had the pleasure this evening of sending the DDA chair, the treasurer, and Mr. Nivelt an email saying that the DDA SAM registration has been renewed until March of 2025. In doing so, we've also corrected the name from the non-existent entity of Tuscarora Township Hall to the existing entity of Tuscarora Township. We're also in the process of making that same correction for the already registered Township Hall, meaning Township Hall, and adjusting the names to reflect the current occupants of the seats. So
They were our receiving board for the, and will be this coming election as well. So my oversight, I had it written down, but forgot to bring it up. We're ready to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Support that.